And a big good morning or big good evening to you. And we were just thinking we were right around the corner here with Halloween. And that traditionally is a time for people who grow pumpkins and or have pumpkins. So you maybe bought a pumpkin.
Bought one, yeah.
I used to grow some pumpkins. I remember I raised one time a 57-pound pumpkin. It was huge, and I just wanted to, I like to practice what I preach. I get out there and I grow bananas and I grow avocados, and I used to grow a lot of broccoli. I used to grow cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, tomatoes, peppers. You name it, I probably have tried to grow it at one time or another. And I've always enjoyed that. To me, the miracle of seeing the life come. One of the things you can do with your pumpkin is scoop out those seeds. They're high in zinc. Most of us are deficient in zinc. So if you eat your little pumpkin seeds and put them in the oven, I put a little dash of salt on there. Don't tell my cardiologist. Just a little.
Just a little dash.
And because it makes it tastier. You can't try to buy a snack food that doesn't have a little bit of salt on it.
Well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, they took away my... Publix, at least by May, maybe not all, but Publix had one type of corn chip that you could buy that was totally salt-free, and I actually liked it.
Did you?
Yeah, well, I did because, again, if you look at the salt content that you're going to find in most salsa that you're going to buy,
it's
pretty high. So
yeah.
You really don't need both. And what's funny is about the third or fourth time that you eat it, you actually start to prefer the salt-free brand over the salt brand. But it's kind of like, drinking your first beer. Yeah, it's all right, but it kind of becomes an acquired taste.
Yeah, I was going to say, the first time you taste the beer, you're going, why did anybody ever drink this?
Right.
And the same thing, I used to think that about, whiskey and some other things, too. If you drink it and you're going, you get excited about this? I mean, I always thought it was funny as a kid, the old gunslingers, they'd go to the bar and they'd all knock down there.
Get me some of that gut rot.
And I'm thinking, gosh, that must have been like, we put it through our cowboy boot. It's going to taste pretty good.
Yeah. And they're wearing 30 pounds of cowhide, and they're out west where it's hot, and let me get some warm whiskey that tastes like... I won't say what it tastes like.
I can't even imagine that. No wonder they were always pissed off and ready for gunfights. But anyway, the pumpkin idea is that you can grow your own. I know people don't. You need to think about that about 4 months prior before you get into Halloween season.
Right.
I know that some people go, I have a nephew who goes, Halloween's a pagan season. Depending on what you want to make anything, every day could be your pagan day or your religious day, and that depends on how you look at it.
You had people that didn't want their kids to watch Harry Potter because they considered it to be too, out there.
They're flying around on those brooms.
Yeah.
How about suspend disbelief?
You should be more worried about whether the kids can read.
Yes.
So, to me, there are bigger problems out there than worrying about whether or not something is considered a type of anti-Christian sentiment, which I don't think that was the purpose of it.
I don't think it was either. I think it's a hard stretch to get there.
But there was a big crowd out there that thought that was the case and thought that it was pushing anti-Christian values. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I think, we were talking about, pumpkins and what we do with them afterwards. And again, one of the things I would say is pumpkins are good at biodegrading. So you can, rather than just picking them up and throwing them in the dumpster, why don't you mash them up and put them around your plants?
You can do that. Or some people will have, they'll leave them
compost.
Out in wooded areas. They'll see, different critters that are out there, like possums and raccoons, might eat them and go, hey, this is pretty good. Pumpkins are edible, and I'm always amazed. A lot of the pumpkin filling will be squash and other things when you buy it in the can. But and a certain amount of cinnamon and sugar and spice, of course, to maybe give it a flavor.
So people will buy it.
Exactly. Now you can get pumpkin puree that is totally pumpkin, but then you're going to wind up having to add in the spices and stuff to give it the flavor that you would consider traditionally.
Yeah, so that it doesn't taste like Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't taste like much.
It doesn't taste like anything.
I mean, it's kind of like my avocados. I love my avocados, and I like the subtle flavor. But in general, the reason people like guacamole better is that it has more things in it that give it more flavor than what you typically get from your tree. Now, I've
Right.
learned to like both. I can eat guacamole and I like it. I've also had avocados on a pretty regular basis since my tree has been in. I guess I'm thinking from about June through October, I probably had at least one avocado a day.
Wow.
But
The avocado kid.
now I know they're a little high in potassium, but I maintain that if you're getting potassium in a regular natural food source,
Correct. It's when people try to take it in a pill form, and you'll find too, if people don't already know this, if you try to take potassium in a pill form, you'll find that it's down into as little as like 2 milligrams or something. They're doing it because they don't want you to kill yourself inadvertently.
yeah, too much. But in a food source,
It's bound up,
unless you're eating 10 avocados a day,
which I don't know how anyone
I
could
would
ever
do. I don't think you're going to have any problems. And the same thing goes for bananas. Bananas do have some potassium in it. I still think the good that you get from a banana is better than.
Well, I have heard from a very knowledgeable source that bananas will make your dogs fat. Can you comment on that?
I don't know.
No. It's time to put you on the spot.
Your
and
one
get a
little dog is
direct-
getting whiter, but I don't think it's because of bananas.
wider, not taller.
But she's a sweetheart.
Yes.
So we love her. Little
What
kid.
would you rather see? A dog that looks like it's been through a Holocaust camp, or a dog that has a little meat on its bones?
Yes. Well, your
Come on
dog
now.
is also older, so it's at the stage where a lot of us, as we get older, you're not quite the same shape that you were when you were 18.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And I even have to remind people that I play tennis with that are younger than me that hey, look, I realize that everything everything that you're doing, I know you're going to heal and you'll be ready to go, but no, I'm not ready to play again tomorrow. I need like a day's rest after I do. Playing 2.5 hours of tennis. I'm at the stage where I got to have like I can play Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but I can't do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's just not going to happen.
And yet, if you were a pro tennis player, you'd be out there morning, noon, and night.
Can't do. And in truth, by the time that these people retire, I would love to know what their joints look like.
It's usually tough. Well, you see most sports athletes pay a price.
Right. Well, and even watching, Tom Brady, who's a fan of the show, he writes in from time to time.
Favorite gardening show. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, duh. But anyways, I think it was a shock to a lot of people when they saw that he was wearing that knee brace. I think it was the week before last that he did like a little slide, and it bent.
It kind of got torn up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did not know that his knee, I think his left knee, was in such a precarious position that you needed to wear something with steel reinforced around your knee like that. I didn't know that he's clearly has issues with that.
Well, there's not too many 45-year-olds still playing professional football.
No.
Like none.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I this is purely selfish and from a fan standpoint, but if we're not going to retire based entirely on the idea to keep someone happy, your significant other, then maybe there's a few more years of football that we can play, because I can say that when he's out there and the Bucks are playing, I feel like there's a pretty good chance we could maybe win, and I feel like if he's not out on the field, then there's a pretty good chance we're going to lose.
Well, that's a pretty strong situation. I was just looking the other day. I think the New England Patriots are not doing that well this year. They're the bottom of their division. And
is Bill Belichick still the guy?
Yeah, he's still there. I mean, and I think it's a good example of he's a great coach.
Mhm.
But you also need a great quarterback. And I'm not this isn't a sports show as such.
No. But we're an equal opportunity offender on this show. We go around the block and talk about a lot of different things that pop into our brains, which is what makes this show interesting.
He is the GOAT, and there's a reason why he is, because he still looks confident out there on where he's going. You can see him checking off different targets, and of course having great receivers doesn't hurt either. I think he knows when he throws it up there, there's a better than even chance that Evans is going to come down with the ball if
Right.
it's one of these, jump situations.
Sure, and I only mentioned Tom Brady because he has this over the house barbecue and that kind of thing, which is it's getting a little annoying if I have to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
But
it's because he really loves green and growing.
yeah, but at the end of the day, just calm down there, bub. We're friends. We're not that tight. I'll let you know when I have some free time. Okay, so calm down.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly he'll do that. I'm sure he'll accommodate us in that respect.
I wish hey just to have him as our quarterback for the that's good enough. I mean, I think the guy whether he's got a successful marriage or not, I don't necessarily think that either one of them should be judged on that. And I think there's a lot of components that are going on in that scenario that a lot of us just don't know anything about, and I don't think that's really any of our business.
So. That's true. That's true. Well, going back to horticulture and plants and trees
Sure.
and stuff, but yes, we are glad that Tom is one of our big fans.
And we might mention too that if you're interested in picking up an indoor plant, you can go and see our fine folks over at Plants. That's plantz.us if you want to learn more about the rental side, and then it's plantz.com if you want to buy a plant. And make sure that you tell the fine folks at Plants that Stan and James DeFreitas with the Ask Mr. Greethumb program sent you, and that way they know that we are doing a little live read here in their benefit on their company.
And Steve Stanford is a great guy. One of the things I saw the other day is he was captaining a little league team.
Mm-hmm.
And he's out there with his guys, and they have their little shirts and stuff and hats. And I kept
love
thinking, what a great guy. If that doesn't say a lot about Steve Stanford as a great human being, I don't know what does, because I know those were precious years in my mind for my life.
Absolutely. And with that noise, we're going to go pay some bills, and you are listening to AM 860, The Answer. Stay tuned. Be hilarious if we ever got somebody famous to call.
It'd be funny. We got to call somebody.
You're talking about me.
Yeah. Hey guys, send me a check.
You imagine what that would do? I mean, if one guy shows up one taping, we'd have like 1 million people wanting to watch.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not holding my breath on that.
No, but I'm just saying it is amazing that what one person's influence could do.
I did meet a guy the other day at the Christian breakfast who I can't remember his name now, but he was a Major League Baseball player, and he said
Meet the man who shook the hand of Andy Griffith.
He said he batted against some of the greats, and he said
Ty Cobb.
No, but he was not that old. Segment 2. Mr. Dew. And I am Stan, my son is James, and we are the dynamic duo when it comes to horticulture / injecting / real estate.
Yeah, and speaking on the real estate thing, an interesting topic that was brought up in the Realtor magazine that I thought it's a good one, and it's a new one that we have to talk about, and you're on it as well, which is talking about homes that now have solar panels on them. One of the things I was going to mention is you do want to go when you see solar panels on a roof and you suspect that it's pretty new and the person is selling. Here's a tip. You definitely want to go and look at the contract that the homeowner signed with the solar company. You'd like to know that company was still in business, so that all of the terms that they've agreed to still apply, and that there are some rights that are retained within that contract for whomever owns the home.
And transferable?
Transferable, yeah, that's correct. One of the things it's mentioning in this article is just talking about whether or not the system is owned or leased. Well, that makes a big difference, whether or not they paid for it up front or if they're, deferring the cost of power in the form of a lease. A lot of people doing that, because they can't afford to buy the $40,000 system, and that's fine, but again, at the end of the day, if you're making a $200 or $250 monthly payment or more, for your solar power, you've got to pay the power some way. So I'm not totally against it. The only thing I would say is, what is the efficiency going to look like in 18 years or after you've paid for it? Because I think here's one of the things I'll say about solar and how it relates to real estate is I do suspect that this is going to happen. Okay, not all, but in some cases I think this is going to happen, and I think this is going to be for some people, and so it makes sense to talk about it now. I think the thought is that, well, I've made the house more valuable. Okay, and I think that's part of it, of why people are doing it. The other thing is they know they have to pay for power. The only issue that I'm worried about is that, the longevity. What are you left with?
We're not sure.
Right, and we're going to learn about that as this experiment plays out. What are you left with, though, after the unit's paid for? Because I can see a scenario where the solar panels are paid for and they're operating at 17% capacity, and now you're looking at the home and you're going, well, I would have paid you X amount of dollars, but the solar panels are only operating at this efficiency level. And I actually think the solar panels at this point, considering what it costs to replace them, that I'm going to want to give you less.
Sure. In that case, what was it going to cost to take the panels down?
Right, and I think that's going to wind up being a negotiating issue as to, like, okay, well, if we upgrade the panels, would you pay this? I think that's going to start to be, something that we didn't have to anticipate before because it wasn't ever an issue because they weren't ever on the home. So now we're going to have to think about those kinds of things. And so I throw that out there because I want people to be thinking about that. And I think that's kind of why they devoted so much, it's like the center fold, if you will, of the Florida real estate magazine for this month is talking about all the different things.
And is the company still viable? I mean,
right.
all the companies come out and say, we're here, we're going to be here, we'll be here in 20 years, 30 years. Well, we all know in business that is not always the case. And so that's interesting to say, where is it going to be? What's it going to be?
Right. And one of the things it also talks about too is, having a professional come out and that does this and to, it's not. I don't think it is. Okay. When you get a traditional home inspection, I would doubt that the home inspectors have a whole lot of training as it relates to installing solar panels. I'm not saying that they don't. I just don't imagine that that's a broad spectrum kind of thing.
Or relatively new for them.
Yeah, I mean, and I could imagine that that we can have that done or an add-on service, but I don't necessarily know if that is something that is. And again, I'm speaking off the cuff here, and somebody can correct me, and that's fine. But I would imagine that is an additional service requirement that a lot of people are going to want, given the value of, or the lack of value, if it isn't working, that this could provide to a prospective buyer.
And if you've got a shingle roof, are they going to be, a lot of them say, we will come out, take them off, and put them back on for you. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes that's one time or two times, or maybe the life they'll say, but of course they have to be in business still.
Right.
And if you don't have a harder roof, let's say you have just a shingle roof, which nothing wrong with it, how long will the shingles last? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Do they last longer because you've got some of the area covered? Or will that area where it's covered last longer?
Oh, I would think so. I think that
than the area around it.
I would think that the area that the sun is not hitting it with, that people will be taking this off, and you'll see, wow, that looks like a brand new roof underneath it there. And it's because the radiation isn't hitting it every day.
How much if you just give me 80%?
Just replace the shingles underneath the solar panels.
The outer shingles.
Around the solar panels, right.
I can see somebody asking that. I think you're going to find a big fat no on that. But that would be interesting.
Agreed. I mean, you show up to Wendy's or McDonald's and no cup. How much just to put my head under the soft drink fountain?
Well, I've seen idiots do that on tennis courts before, where the guys are out there going, "Oh, let me put my head underneath."
Oh yeah. Speaking specifically of a guy named Darren who did that, and I said, I looked at him and because he forgot a cup, and he's putting his head underneath the Igloo water cooler, and I said, it was just a short term, a year ago. We were all like petrified of COVID, and now you put your head under there like a barn animal because you forgot a cup. And I just think I think of how the progression of time has gone by, and how people again, you know,
Maybe you could build him like a little trough thing that says Darren on the side and stick it underneath there for him when you come.
well, I did tell him I thought he was a little piggy doing it that way, so that would make sense. But yeah, he's an interesting soul, to say the least.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice enough guy, but
yeah, but certainly I think there's definitely, I think parents may have dropped him on his head or something.
strange and unique.
Strange and unique. Yeah, that's exactly. But anyway, just finishing up real fast on the solar panel discussion is, like I said, I think these solar panels for now are largely going to be in the plus column of things that they're positive. I think eventually they're going to become a negative. They're going to go in the negative pile, and I think that's some of that's going to be dependent upon who you're selling it to. But I do think that some of the younger buyers that are coming into the market are going to want solar panels. So I think that mostly it's a plus. But again, you can't take something that isn't working correctly and then put it in the plus column. You just can't. I'd say it has to go somewhere in between with a question mark until it's been looked at by a professional who can tell you whether or not this system is either A, worth salvaging, or what it needs to continue to be operating at a very high efficiency.
Speaking of that, a lot of the cars that were, electric cars that were down in the water, that got flooded, wind up going on fire when the water was around them up over the doors.
Yeah, salt water is an excellent conductor.
No one really thought about that being a potential problem.
It's a problem.
And I thought, I think it's funny, we're going to mandate people need to go in this direction, but we're not anywhere. I'm the government, and I'm here to help.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot more to do on that, and we've got a lot more to say when we come back from the break. And of course, you are listening to AM 860, The Answer.
Stay with us as the plant talk and real estate talk and world talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer. Yeah, I think that's funny. I thought it's funny. David was going to remind me porch one time that, it's real tough for them to get rid of the batteries for like your car, because I have I thought, well, you don't think, what about batteries that you're going to put in your house to store power if you do store the power?
He's not storing any power.
No, he's not. But
yeah. What segment is that, Brian?
Number 3.
So we're moving right along.
All right.
Good.
And we were talking a little bit about solar, and of course, we talk about plants and trees and real estate, and solar fits into both the idea.
Why not? Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, nothing happens in the plant world without Mother Nature and the big soul.
The solar is what's making it happen.
It's making it happen. So, one of the things, though, that I guess we should put one emphasis up is that one of the things that happens at a lot of homes when people are considering putting on solar panels on their house is, and I think we need to balance this. I mean, we want to have more trees. Okay, we like trees. Trees are, if you are a firm believer in climate change, then my comment to that is let's plant more trees, because I think that's how we're going to help fix this, because that's the largest carbon sequestration that I know that we can do and do fairly.
It's kind of like God's big solar panel.
Right. So, but the issue that I do notice, and I'll give you, for example, a friend of mine had solar panels put on his roof down there in St. Pete on a house that we helped them buy. Or buy for them. Yeah. And but one of the issues that came to mind is he said, well, they're going to put the solar panels up, but we're going to have to cut down 2 or 3 trees. And I'm like, cut down the tree? Yeah, it's providing too much shade over our juicy new solar panels. So there is a little bit of competition between the concept of trees and being green with solar panels, and that's something that there needs to be a careful balancing act there. Do we cut down all the trees in order to make room for the solar panels? Or do we keep some of the trees and try to make sure that we work around it a
Or maybe
little bit?
plant another tree somewhere else in the yard that
But
isn't going to affect.
agreed, and I think that's the answer. The question is how do we go from talking about that we'll do that to actually doing it?
That's a good question.
Maybe they need to make a promise to themselves or make a contract to themselves that I will do X if I do Y. And I think that's the thing that they need to do is that if you're gonna put up the panels and we're gonna cut down a tree, then we need to make sure that we add X, Y, and Z in the backyard to make up for that. But again, the sapling that you buy today will not have the carbon capturing capability of the established mature tree you already have.
Yeah, I was trying to call a couple of my contacts this last week to see what would be the largest tree someone could get if they wanted something in our
Did he ever call you back?
Yeah, I did talk with Mr. Sears at Tree Mart, and he was telling me he could get probably a 25 to 30 foot tall tree.
Well, I was specifically talking about the guy that owns the live oak.
I did try to call him. He did not call me back, but I don't know. He's pretty busy and.
Interesting, because we probably had a lead for him on tens of millions of dollars worth of trees if he had called you back, but I guess he doesn't need it.
Well, I don't know. He had some health problems too. He and I were talking about our hearts at the time.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's also.
He was kind of putting his on. I know it's there. I know I could die, but I'm not real worried.
He was on Manana complex. Yeah.
He did like a lot of folks do because I was saying, look, if you're having these many problems, you need to go in and see a cardiologist like now. Yeah, I'm going to go off and take a trip.
Yeah, you need to get that.
And I'm going off to the heartland of America. And I said, you might not be back if you really are having the symptoms you told me about. And I'm not a doctor.
If you're going to the heartland, you think it would be
You
another
think it'd be a
mnemonic.
natural.
You would think that would be a mnemonic trick to remember to get yourself checked out. One of the stats that I learned the other day, we're talking about health on this particular topic here, but it was pointed out to me that we do these colonoscopies. At 50, we start at 50, and if you're having issues, you'll have it done sooner. But one of the things, so we're really good at mitigating the problem that you were talking about with that actress who had died from colon cancer.
Yeah, I was talking about Elizabeth Montgomery.
Right. So we've learned from that mistake of waiting to check people. Okay. So we had to have X amount of people die before we finally realized, okay, we need to start checking people earlier in life. One of the stats that I heard or that read the other day was that 85% of the people who have lung cancer find it too late.
Sure. Well, they usually have smoked for a long time.
So we're not screening people pulmonarily. I don't know if that's a word, but it is today. We're not screening people on the pulmonary side in their lungs in the same way that we are doing for the gut.
I would say it's promotion.
Yeah. So we need to step that up. I
think you're right. I think a lot of the hospitals mention that. Switching gears just back for a second.
Go for it.
And that's going to the solar again. I am proud to say that you and I are both realtors. We pay to the NAR and we pay locally to be members of so we can say we are realtors as
realtors,
just as real estate agents.
Or if you're new to the business, realtor.
But yeah, I love it. I love the way the announcers often makes things into 3 and 4 syllables.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to them, they planted in our behalf as an organization 1,575,000 trees for every realtor in the country.
Nice.
So for every realtor out there, so all you realtors that are listening.
There's only 1.5 million realtors.
1,575,000 that I guess are paying members for being a realtor. Now there's a lot of real estate agents. You don't necessarily, unless your broker is
right.
You don't necessarily have to be.
Correct. Yeah.
And I understand that because it does seem like every time you turn around,
there's another fee.
There's another fee, and
you're always paying a fee here or there, and it's always a little more expensive. But just remember, inflationary times, but it's only transitory.
I guess. For me, I'm always either paying to be a certified arborist. I'm paying for classes and updates. I'm paying to be a certified pest control operator, so I'm doing that. I'm paying to be a realtor. So it seems like every month or two I'm sending out money to somebody who needs it very badly to keep up the organization. But I did think that was a good thing, because I sometimes look at the realtor thing and I thought, well, I understand why everybody wants to be connected, but is it really something that we need?
Yeah, well, and it's definitely one of those things where it's kind of baked into the process. You know, in our area, in particular in Pinellas County, you know, you have to be part of the system to participate in, let's call it a club, to participate in the club. And this, you know, mature agents have been in this long, they already know, they know all of this, but new to the business agents are learning about this. To be part of the club, you have to, you're generally going to want to get your you know, electronic key access, and then you're going to want to you know, be part of your, you know, in our situation, Pinellas County Realtors Association, you're going to want to be a part of that, so you can access and put homes in MLS and search MLS, because there is a club there. And you know, and so when people say to me, like, you know, some people will say, "Well, I'm just going to do a FSBO." Okay, you know, I get it, I understand, and I would say right now they're kind of in a luxury position. You know, a lot of times people can get away with it right now because we still have a lot of demand. Okay,
Sure.
so you can get away with it. But I would say when that's not the case, you're going to need more help, and you're going to need to get as much exposure for a property as you can, and there will be more eyeballs on a property if it is in MLS. That's a fact. Okay?
Sure.
So there is value to that. And, you know, and I also would say too, if you're a good real estate agent, you should always be making the argument to your prospective client, hey, look, do you care about the small percentage you're going to pay me, or how much value I will add to the transaction that pays for whatever you were going to pay for me, and then some? I mean, it shouldn't be, when I hear that you're just worried about trying to avoid paying a real estate commission, I get it, but I would say that in certain situations you'd be foolish not to have one, because things are going to go smoother, things are going to get handled easier for you, and you know, then you can kind of just go about your life.
Yeah, you're normally better off with that. And I think it's amazing that people will sometimes complain about a real estate transaction.
Right.
They have no problem paying 40% of what they may get from an attorney.
Right, from a lawsuit.
From a lawsuit, but somehow paying 3% to either side, you know, in a thing,
Yeah,
or 4%, whatever it may be.
Right.
It's like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm getting scalded here.
Yeah, and I think that's a general. I think that again. I think there's an education issue amongst many, and I think the other issue too is that you have a lot of people that have licenses, and so therefore, and this is one of the issues that, you know, we haven't done a very good job with in Tallahassee. We have allowed anybody with a pulse to be able to go get a real estate license. So we've sort of devalued it by having everyone go get one.
There's a bunch of folks out there.
Right. And so we've, you know, so now what you have is only really established agents really do anything in the market. And the little guys are just going to do 3 or 4 or 5 transactions a year and call that success. And depending on where you're selling, that could be really good, and depending on where you're not selling, that could be really poor. I mean, that could be, you could still be at poverty level. Okay.
True.
So I guess the thing I would say is the state of Florida needs to think about more than just how they can collect more money. I think that they should make the test harder, and I think that, you know, we would weed out a lot more people that way, and especially the broker's exam. There's way too many people that take that test and pass, by far.
Mm-hmm.
You
Though
know,
a lot of them are associate brokers now,
right.
which you might explain what the difference is.
Okay, so if you're associate broker, that means that you're working under a broker, and if, you know, and then if you're a broker, it means that you own your own business and you're working for that, or I should say, you are the broker for that business.
Broker of record.
You could be the broker of record for a business, which means you don't exactly have to own it. So there are some differences there. But yeah, that's the difference in terms of how that would take place.
And then I've met agents too. They'll go, I have the special sauce. And I'm going, nobody has necessarily the special sauce. Now, maybe connections make a difference, for sure. And I would say that's one of the things they don't ever teach you in real estate class, is getting to meet people is half the battle. And some of the people who are the most successful in this business advertise a bunch on television and in radio and billboards.
But that's every business.
And that's true. I mean,
that's every business.
The people who are most successful in lawsuits, the big companies. I'm thinking of Morgan & Morgan. They spend a ton of money.
Oh, I don't even say their names correctly. I'm Logan and Logan.
Hey,
for the people.
Hey, but now the universe.
Yeah, now the universe.
But you're saying I don't want to give them too much free publicity because they don't.
They are not spending on our show, and this is the one area that they could have been spending, and they're not.
That's right. We should have been. Actually, I talked to the one Morgan son one time. He's a nice guy too. He said we just buy in bulk. Yeah. We buy in bulk, so we don't really are not looking to sponsor a great gardening show. I said what?
Fool.
Hey. But
foolish soul.
I would say any business that you're in, you probably need to promote, and you need to keep doing it. Be it radio, TV, whatever, you need to keep doing it.
And it's everything. It's not the one thing that you do. And I think people get confused. They get really happy about their email campaigns and forget the other parts of it that they have to do.
We're going to pay some bills, so you stay with us as the Plant Talking Radio here on AM 860, The Answer.
In radio here? What? That was weird.
What's that?
And you said, and the radio here.
And the radio. Well, they're listening to the radio.
Oh, okay. I was confused.
I don't see it as a big faux pas.
It was definitely a faux pas.
Faux pas. Faux pas. Faux pas.
You even made a faux pas on your faux pas.
Frappuccino pas. This should be what, our last segment?
I think this is 4, right, Brian? Okay, great. Okay.
We are here to help you, and we'll answer your questions, be it on lawns, trees. If you've got holes in those trees, take a look at the tree. They got some bore holes in there? Are there BB holes? Are there bigger holes? Is there some sap, some sawdust, some cavity?
And what might they do if they see these things? Maybe they should take a picture of this thing?
Take a picture and send it to me. Stan, you can do it to Stan, Mr. Greethumb, Mr. Greethumb.
Let's say you don't even want to go down the email road. You just want to use the text. Well, Stan can do that. You can text Stan at 727-423-4794. That's 727-423-4794. You can text him directly, and you of course, make sure you say, hi, this is, Jim Bob, and, sorry to the Jim Bobs that are out there. But anyway, you can do that. Just say, hey, this is Jim Bob, this is the live oak, this is the laurel oak, this is, whatever it is, and it looks funky.
Let me see it. Yeah. If I can see it, I can normally tell you what's going on. I can come to a consult. I'll be glad to do that. But if we can see it, I can usually tell what's going on. Then I can tell you if there's something we can do to help you. Right. I don't mind going to do a consult, but there is a charge for consults, because if you've been to the gas station lately, and now I see the Saudis have decided to teach us a lesson by cutting back on their production. It is a shame that we at one point were energy independent, but I'm not going to get political on that. I think it would be great if we were energy independent again. One of my friends that I argued with years ago said, oh, we don't want that Canadian oil because it's dirty. I said, but over in Saudi, the man can say the woman did anything he wants and they'll stone her to death.
Well, even if it was a little dirtier and not clean in Canada, is it clean to burn a bunch of oil on a double-hulled tanker and have it go 6,000-7,000 miles before it arrives at a U.S. port?
Wasting a lot of energy, and there's a chance that you could pollute the waters.
Right. So I mean, I don't necessarily buy that argument. And the other thing, and again, I know we're not political, but one of the things I will say, I don't even care, because people will say, well, the Keystone Pipeline, blah 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 blah. It's what it says when you cancel the Keystone Pipeline, because it sends a message about what your administration isn't interested in doing. So I don't care if it's the tone that is set. and it tells all of the oil executives, oh, well, we're dealing with an administration that really doesn't want us to be doing this sort of thing.
Well, it's funny because you and I are both, I like solar. I like the idea of solar. I just don't think we're ready. We're not quite ready for it yet.
Right, and it's like almost everybody wants us to be where we might be in 15 years.
And so it's a process that we need to get to.
Right.
And so I will say that putting plants out will be one of the first things you can do. If you want to try to help the world, plant more trees, cities, counties, areas. And I know their trees are an expense. You do have to have somebody, like Kelly Stafford, come out and trim your trees from time to time. But you're giving off oxygen. You're taking in carbon dioxide. You are stabilizing the soil. You can go underneath that tree, and I'm not saying it's really 10 degrees temperature wise, but it feels a lot better.
It's much cooler under a tree or in some shade. And I will mention too, if you are interested in having somebody who is a wonderful tree expert, certainly give Kelly Stafford a call. You can give her a call at 727-546-8786. That's 727-546-8786. I believe that is a textable number, so if you're not a phone person per se, but you like texting, tell her who you are, tell her how you heard us, so make sure you give out a little props.
We get a few brownie points.
Right, and if you want to reach her on the web, you can at Stafford Tree SVC. That stands for Stafford Tree Service, so that's StaffordTreeSVC.com. So you can reach her in those ways, and it's a great family-owned business. They're doing very well. They're taking care of their employees. They're paying a living wage, and she's just they're both tremendous people, and we like to see small businesses grow.
And if you are a potential sponsor, you want us to endorse you each and every week here on our show, both on Sunday and Saturday, we are here. We need your support because that's what keeps us going. We like to help enterprise. We like people who have a business. If you have a good service business, you're the best mechanic in the area, you're the best tile person, you're the best roofer, you make the best of whatever you do.
I think it's tile contractor.
Tile contractor. Yeah. I'll cede that to you.
Yeah.
We are here to try to help individuals that need their word out there. Now you got to be a certain size usually.
Sure.
But you could even be a mechanic somewhere where you're a one-horse place, and you could say, hey, I want to get some more customers in.
Well, even if you're in the contracting business, that wouldn't be a bad tie-in. I mean, I'm thinking of at least one right now that could do that.
Sure, we can help them. And they say, hey, how can we get more business? Well, not only can we help you on the radio, but we have a lot of contacts, and we like to mention to our friends who will call me and say, hey, who do you recommend for this or for that? Be it air conditioning, be it roofing, be it, could be, we do get around and we see a lot of folks who are doing great work, and we try to recommend our folks who work with us.
That's right. We're very good at the back scratching.
And because that's what it's all about. We like to try to help people in the right direction. I like to go out and look at trees. I like to go see what's going on. I mentioned you can send us a picture. James did. And I think that's a first good step. Now, often I'll need to actually see the tree, but I can determine, if the tree is totally dead. A lady called me yesterday and she goes, there's no fronds on this palm at all. So at that point, I said, you need to call Kelly Stafford and you probably have to have the tree removed.
Right.
But if you want to send me a picture, I can maybe tell you what's going on. I looked at some palms recently. You and I did. We did a consult job. We identified the problem. The trees need to be sprayed. The new trees going in need to be sprayed. The soil that they're going into needs to be sprayed, or there's a good chance you'll have a problem.
Right, and speaking of that specific situation, it's one of these situations where we identified that the trees had Phthaliopsis, which is a fungal pathogen, and we availed ourselves using the University of Florida and the tools that are out there to have some testing done in order for them to, and again, the way they do that without getting too technical is they actually will use a smear on a culture, and they'll grow a culture over multiple days to determine what that is that's growing from the samples that is provided, and then they'll look under a microscope to verify which one it is. I think in this case they just kind of give you a broad generalization, but there's probably, I don't know, thousands of different varieties of Phalaenopsis out there that can get into things. I'm making a broad assumption there. But again, typically there's, I mean, well, think about it this way. Even with a COVID virus, it's mutated several times already.
Sure.
Now again, that is a virus, and we're talking about a fungus here. So, but typically things, there can be, I mean, how many funguses are there?
Oh, there's
Yeah, so
thousands of fungi.
Right.
And you're right. Many things can change, do mutate. I'm always amazed in nature how things will change and adapt to something else.
Sure.
And one of the reasons I think we have so many problems with our palms, and we get into that too, is that a lot of these palms have been introduced into the state.
Right, and they weren't not meant to be here.
You know, the old cabbage palm never seems to have a problem, hardly.
Right.
The very expensive $8,000 to $10,000 Phoenix, you know, that we see on the roadways, they are more susceptible.
Right, and there's a big difference between millions of years of evolution to an environment and adaptation versus a recent transplant and then wondering why you have problems. And that's something, it's a good thing to bring out as to why these trees are having problems. Switching gears just slightly, since this show is airing on the 30th of this month, so Halloween is tomorrow. One of the things I would say is to parents out there, a little PSA, make sure you take your kids' candy. You know, I'm sure everything is just going to be just fine, but you go through it. Don't assume that everyone out there has a good soul like you do, and go through and not to incite fear, but I do think it is worth a moment of pause to make sure that you've gone through and checked it. And if you're a new parent, that may not be something that is automatic in your brain, but go through and check that to make sure that it is safe for consumption.
Check those apples. Walk with your kids.
Well, I don't know about apples. Anybody giving apples anymore? Come on.
Maybe. I know when I was a kid, that was not uncommon.
Yeah, in the 60s, I'm sure that was happening. But I don't think I don't think anyone gives out apples.
Well,
anymore.
they did back then.
My kids want like nerds and sweet tarts and all this other, basically just different forms.
Of course, back
sugar.
then in stockings at Christmas, you'd often get apples and walnuts and other things in there. That was very common back then.
Wow. Well, I'm glad certain things have evolved.
And that's one of them. Hey, do you know the value of walnuts these days?
Ooh.
Hey.
And a green apple. That would really set it off.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that ham. What a value my dad gave me. Yeah. So anyway, we want
That's
you to.
5 pounds of veal. That's what he said.
Do you know what that expense is today?
We're doing a little segment from Scrooge Bill Murray film. So,
that was great.
Anyways, you have been listening to the Ask Mr. Greethumb Gardening and Real Estate Show. We appreciate